crowd, even though I don't know if I have a usual crowd, but I wanted to add my stone to the big wall of code and show you how far I got with code. So that's my top, the game I did with Flash in 2007. And you must catch the pew-pew before a certain time or you die. I'm not gonna win in these conditions, but it was just my way to say that I don't code myself, but I know enough to help things happen. So my background, I have a background in graphic design, applied art, and artistic direction. I'm just showing my various diplomas, not to brag, but because I realized that I ended up doing what I do today a little bit by accident, but the thing is, on the various missions I do, I end up using a little bit of all of these. These are projects I did when I was studying. At the time, I didn't know that they were called audiovisual installations, and I found out about that later. I was also doing photography and graphic design, so maybe you know this logotype that is for the Grand Palais in Paris, and I'm the one who made it. And also during my studies, I was actually a producer without knowing it. Like in my school, I made this exhibition of 300 posters, and I work with other people of my class to find solutions to make it possible to hang 300 posters in a really small gallery. I also helped making this type design exhibition in various modes. So we made it first time on walls, but we ended up having to show it on these type of unusable walls. So I made this alternative scenography. I was also part of Monumenta, a big exhibition with Daniel Buren in 2012. And I was just doing the social network content and following all the build-up of this massive installation, which gave me a sense of the behind the scene of this type of large-scale installation and all the roles that have to come together to make it work. I did an internship at SAT in Montreal, Society for Art and Technology, where I ended up, again, completely by accident, being in charge of really complex projects during the Cultural Olympiads with Vancouver. So this was like an installation that was present in Montreal and in Vancouver, and using optical fiber to work or not work sometimes. Various projects. Was then part of the Mapping Festival in 2013, where being in charge of the workshop there, I met a little portion of our community, of the people doing like LEDs and mapping and developing softwares to achieve new projects. In August 2013, I came with Joanie to Japan, and I was supposed to be there on a holiday, and I ended up, like, the installation Joanie was doing there was not really working out, and instead of watching a disaster unfolding in front of me, I kind of helped out, and that's when Joanie, that you will know more about him tomorrow, told me that what I was actually doing was a job, and maybe I could make a living out of that. And I was like, really? What's it called? Oh, people do that. And that's how it all happened. So how do I work? I'm managing everything that we try to do at Studio Joanie Lemercier, which implies that we are fully transparent, that we know each other really well. We communicate a lot about like what we are doing, but also what we want to do. And it also requires humor and patience. I take care of everything, so the existing projects, the new projects, but also the impossible projects. The gifts are just here to keep you awake. I'll also collaborate with many other artists on specific projects, which means that for these projects, I will know the costs, the tech, the feasibility, the adaptability, as well as have a special channel with the artists. So people who have too many emails, if we work together, they should get back to my emails. So maybe you know this project made by Kyle McDonald and Jonas Jongejan. Lightleaks is a project that where Kyle and Jonas use very complex code and develop their own calibration protocol in order to modelize each pixel in a space and transform each pixel in a 3D point cloud. I'm talking to the coding part of the crowd. So the beauty of this project is that they know when they throw light to the mirror balls, they know where each reflection is going to go, so they control the pixel to control the reflection of the pixel to create patterns with the pixel. So they use, maybe you know, the structured light technology, and you can find most of the code, open code online, and everything is documented on GitHub. I also work with this amazing VR project made by a team of 6 people who are really known in the V4 community. I was really against working with VR because it's so complicated on the production side of things, like explain people who organize events that they must pay a reasonable amount of money for a single user experience is really challenging. But then they really insisted that I do this piece, and I fell in love with it. So I took it on my production boat. I collaborate with Robert Henke on some of his projects, and another project called Hyper Soleil made by Jacques Perkins and Jean-Benoît Dunkel. And here again, a beautiful AV performance show where Jacques Perkins is going to use live Max MSP and his own code to play with the compression and decompression of the video, responding to the music of Jean-Benoît Dunkel. Recently, I've also become an independent curator specialized in digital art. So I'm happy to announce tonight the next edition of Stripe Festival. Maybe you know about it. If you don't, you should come. If you know about it, you should come too. So it's going to be the first week of April next year. And here you have a few of the just confirmed names. So I had a different role there to really reach out to artists that I admire with the possibility to commission them new work. So Lauren McCarthy, that has been mentioned in other talks today, will make this new piece using smart pillows and proposing her view on artificial intelligence. Then you will have this beautiful piece made by a Japanese artist who used 3D scanning and 3D printing to create glass shells that she's offering to hermit crabs who can move inside these shells or not. And another mixed reality project called Atlas, where you use like real wood-made houses as well as HoloLens and Vive, and there's a really poetical back and forth between the different layers that the reality and the digital realities are offering us. I wanted to give you an overview of the type of projects that I'm going to be talking about when giving you maybe my processes or tips. So this is a very personal way of compiling and putting everything that you can find into categories to give a first way to organize things. So back to my main work as a digital art producer. I can be called many different names depending on the context, but also the culture. So it's really funny how in the US there's really like this executive producer that is different from the producer, but most of the time all of these combined together. So long story short, my role is to make things realistic, feasible, possible by having a global point of view on time, space, money, logistics, tech, and everything that is not written on that list that is not predictable. I think it's a 360 days a year job. At first, I often look like this. So it's funny, Joanie was asking me if I was the beautiful lady or if I was Jon Snow, and I couldn't really answer. Like, sometimes I'm the one who knows about what's going to happen, and other times I'm the Jon Snow who doesn't have a clue. At some other moments, I'm really going to look like that. Then I have to get inside myself and find a way to find solutions, to be able to juggle with everything that's happening. And at the end, it should look like that. Back to more pragmatic examples. So I would say that always go to like festivals, but also museums, galleries, see what's new, as well as keeping your network alive and stay up to date on technologies. Before a project, my role involved emailing, doing the budgets, sending 5 emails to get some floor plans to know what the space is like. When you're really lucky, you get 3D floor plans. Also handle travels, accommodation, per diems, very important. Always ask for per diems. If you don't know what it is, come see me at the end. I will tell you about that. As well as the schedule, work on the technical riders, anticipate problems, and also understand who is who. During a project, I will remind the schedule and the deadlines to the artists, keep the discussion open, so maybe everything can change 20 times during the project development. Make sure that we are all on the same page, also handle the contracts, payment, being friend with the entire tech team, and especially with the technical director, and keeping an eye on communication assets. There's nothing worse than having worked on a project for 4 months, and when you discover the poster on the opening night, there's a big typo on the name of the project or the artist. During setup, you can find me drawing thousands of black dots on a wall, or making a pyramid factory in a small flat, no, in a really big flat, because the venue where we are supposed to install the pyramids is only accessible 6 hours to install like hundreds of them. You also follow the setup of the truss structure, because like if you are not there, you come and the measurements are all wrong. I'm very often on ladders, like drawings or fixing things. During showtime, if you make a great project, you should not forget to document it, to make nice pictures, to know who is going to turn on and off. Maybe for some of you, I'm saying some really basic and obvious stuff, but you wouldn't imagine how some of these can slip away in the craziness of the moment. Like especially documenting can be completely, could not happen, and then your project is over and you have no trace of it. After the installation, you have to get paid, even though we are working more and more to be paid in advance, which is like the ideal scenario. Get some press pictures if a nice professional photographer made some. Compile the press articles, getting paid because you still haven't, and getting your equipment back if you left some, and still getting paid. At the end, it's all really worth it, because like everything I've listed, I do most of it, unless we have a really big project with a nice budget and we can hire people. But it's worth it because then you get to enjoy the result with the artists. So these are a couple of installations I've been involved with. And sometimes I do a final review with my cat. So what's the deal? I'm not going to be throwing numbers, but I believe that it's essential for our community to find a balance between artistic and commercial projects. I mean, I respect the artists who don't want to have anything to do with commissioned work and brands, but I don't know how they will survive. So I like to talk about this trio of festival or like carte blanche-based projects that has to be the core of your network. Also supporting projects where you don't get paid because you really believe it's important and it's nice to support where you live or your community. Then several of the artists I'm working with, we try to push the door of the art world. I believe Mario will talk also a little bit about that after me. And then the commercial projects are for me always an opportunity to test new techniques and ideas. When things are like really expensive or really big, that's the kind of thing you should test with a big brand paying for all of it. So I'm going to get a little bit deeper into 2 projects to show you the different variables that can be involved on production side. So the first one is a project we did with Joanie in 2013. We're collaborating with many artists for this project, especially with Boris Edelstein, the inventor of MadMapper and Modulate. So the project started with like a mood board. The request was to make some holiday windows for a high-end luxury shop on the Fifth Avenue. So we had these windows looking at the Fifth Avenue, and we were asked to do something, to build something inside 4 windows. So I'm going to talk about one of the 4 windows. So inspirations, so that's the back and forth between Joanie and Boris creating the project. Then the first structures ideas made in Cinema 4D. Then you do some nice renders, and then you even do like a realistic render of how the reflections could look like. And you get to this 3D mesh with all the measurements. And because it was our first physical project, we had this idea that once you have it in 3D with every single detail, you can apply nice texture to it, then you press on a button and boom, voila, it's built in the window. It didn't really work out. Then we sent everything we had to some woodworkers, some builders who know how to make stuff, and they still couldn't find solutions to build our thing. So we were really stuck. Fortunately for us, we were working with Kyle McDonald on one of the other 4 windows, and we told him, like, you know, on this other window we are stuck, like, there's something wrong with the angles, but we had a communication problem between the builders and us. We didn't understand what angles didn't work, and they couldn't really explain us what was not working with our shape. So Kyle made this little software, like in 10 minutes, like coding, and he put in all the variables that had to be kept. For example, we were using LED strips that had a certain size, so all the edges had to be a multiple of this length. And we also put inside the software a series of forbidden angles. And so Kyle came back to us with like an infinite possibilities of alternative meshes that would work. And so we could go back to building the window. So then I'm sharing with you a little bit of the fabrication steps. You know, you end up, like, you work on 3 months on this project, and then you realize that, it's going to be complicated to address the LED strips and understand where is what going, and so we had to patch and make this, like, on the moment. And then you have to make it work with, like, reality. So it was super interesting project for people like Boris or Joanie or Kyle, who are very often in the software, because it required us to be constantly doing back and forth between reality and digital. Then, you know, you have these beautiful LED strips made especially for the project, and super thin and really nice and really bright. And the measurements are perfect, but it's not perfect per the millimeters. So at the end, the thing that we used to fix them in the edges were bits and pieces of plastic forks. So just also to remember that sometimes very lo-fi stuff can be the best. This is a little prototype we did to test the type of animations. So the piece was made with triangles, made with mirrors, and then LEDs, and the magic trick is coming from a one-way mirror that is applied on the window itself. Then, because it was an audiovisual installation, came the problem of, like, okay, Boris knows how he's going to animate the LEDs in his software, but we need to build something so the amazingly talented sound artist Thomas Vaquier could also work on his composition. So especially for that, Boris made this little software that would record his animation in his LED, in his software controlling the LEDs, to give this kind of preview to Thomas, so Thomas could work on the sound. So another round of back and forth and another custom-made little software to make the project possible. We did this in 2013, like end of the year, and we are convinced that it didn't happen since, but we know that we will have the opportunity to do something equivalent with much less budget, but we've learned so much from this, and now we know how to make it more efficient, to work maybe with not as many constraints as we had on this one, to make another version of this project for a festival or a museum. And so it's not going to be a one-off forever, we are hoping. Talking about one-offs, I'm going to tell you about this other project called Blueprint that was commissioned by Strap Biennale in 2015. And since the very beginning, the birth of this project, everything was made so it would not be a one-off. So for Stripe, on the creative process, Joanie worked in chapters, and on the elements making the piece, we had many discussions, so the result would be very flexible for other iteration. So this is a little bit of the storyboard of Blueprint. This is the first floor plan that ended up changing like 20 times. And this project was made possible thanks to Elliot Woods, who had found this projector hack technique. I invite you to check the really well-documented hack pad about it. So Elliot found this trick that allows you to transform a really small projector and double its brightness. You lose the colors, but with Joanie it was not a big problem. And without this technique, we could not have made this project because of budgets, but also because of how heavy, powerful projectors would have been. So the flexibility we had in the trussing system, as you see, like for the central totem, the projectors are rigged on the screen, on the opposite screen of each side of the totem. You cannot do that with a big projector like the one that is back there and not working so well today. So it's really interesting how working with geeks that want to do art with what they know, you can really make things that are not possible otherwise. So that's when Joanie and Elliot play with hack projectors. So then you have to do 3D renders to confirm the final setup, and then ta-da, and the final result. So this was once again the first iteration of the project. Projectors are on the side of the trusses. So later of the same year, we were offered to do a stage performance at Sonar. The budget was ridiculous, but we really wanted to do something at Sonar, so James and Joanie decided to do a stage version of the same piece. Because they had worked in chapters and the story they wanted to tell through Blueprint could unfold in various ways, you still got a sense of the same concept of relationship between human scale, architectural blueprints, and the universe, even looking at a single screen stage performance. Later of the same year, we were offered to do something inside the beautiful church of Saint-Méry next to Centre Pompidou. And once again, the budget was, and also I'm talking a lot about the budgets, but also the timing was crazy to do a new artwork. So, but the venue was so amazing that we decided to readapt Blueprint. And thankfully, they had this incredible floor that was just perfect for the piece. So Joanie just did a new part with the content, especially for this floor, but the rest of what was on the main screen we reused from the Stripe version. So I don't know if you remember the first image of this totem in this industrial context, and it was really amazing to do another totem in this church context. So, just in case there are people in the room who would like to, is that the right slide? Yeah. Who would like to do, or are already doing some artistic projects, I'm just going to leave you with a couple of maybe steps or ideas of where to start and how to make it happen. So I would suggest, and once again, I'm not saying that I know, I don't have the clues and I don't have the keys, and I don't know what's the best method, but in my opinion, I would start by making a PDF document about your project, or start a Google Doc tonight, or a little note on your cell phone, and write a small text about your idea, maybe pictures that you find inspiring, and maybe do a quick sketch on your notebook. Then if you are really more into doing things on your computer, do 3D renders, and quickly move to ideally to a prototype. And I am saying to do a tech rider in the first step, because I think it's a good way to keep your project grounded and feasible. Like, you can have amazing ideas, but if you, on your tech rider, you will have to put like, okay, what am I providing? What is the organizer providing? What's the space I need? And like, if you need 300 square meters black box, your project is very unlikely to happen. That's just an example. Then post online videos of what you do, pictures, teaser. Do not be afraid to put things online. I think this is so 20th century to believe that if I put online, people are going to copy my thing. I think putting things public is the best way for the world to know that you were the first to have this idea. Then reach out to festivals, to head of events, to people like me with this tech rider, giving the person you are reaching out to ideas, like try to take a picture and tick all the boxes. Recently, I received an email with a PDF that was 65 pages. Maybe the project was amazing, but I have a lot of emails. So try to be straight to the point. Do like Joanie, use really nice, catchy pictures to get the interest of the people. Do not be afraid to answer to call for projects and also to residencies. You wouldn't imagine how many call for projects get very little proposal from new people. And once again, publish, document, use social networks, use your community, share what you do. Final tips. Do not work for free. Even if you ask for small budgets, or if there is a really good reason to do something for free, then it should be a really good reason. Like, for example, recently we were asked to participate in an interview, but an interview with like like a professional team, it would have taken a whole day of our time. And I said, what are we going to take out of that, giving you a whole day of our time? What answer did I get? What's the free thing we get all offered all the time? Visibility. So the day we can pay our rent with visibility, I'm completely open to this idea. But until then, if you're not sure to get something out of it, then it's a no. The solution we found in this example I'm giving is that next time we have a project that is amazing that we've made, but there is no budget for documentation, then this team of like professional camera and all of it come to film our installation that we have no budget to film properly. And then everyone is happy. Look for similar projects and technologies, see what exists. I believe if you are here tonight, you have a good sense of community, so I think you already do that pretty well. When possible, try to use generic equipment. Like, there's nothing worse than having a piece of structure for your AV performance that is 15 centimeters too long for flight companies. And believe me, it happens all the time. So try to know what are the generic trusses, the measurements, the basic projectors that you are very likely to find in many places. Be clever about that. Consider weight of what you will be making and what will need to be shipped. Believe me, you really want to afford knowing what is an ATA carnet. If you don't know about it, you don't want to know about it, because then the customs are your worst nightmare. So, same idea, be careful with custom technologies. More and more people are making really nice, really cheap, custom-made lasers, but you will have a great opportunity to show your work, and you cannot prove what's the exact dangerosity of your lasers. You're not going to show it to a public audience. That's, once again, an example. So all of it is thinking about the feasibility of your project, budget versus results. Another example is the changeover time for a stage performance. You can have the best idea in the world. If you are not the headliner of the show, you will have 20 minutes to get all your thing out of stage, and yeah, worse, 20 minutes to get it set up on stage. And yeah, answer emails, because I know many people who would like to do things, but they do not communicate well, and I think that's another #1 tip. So voilà, thank you. If you have questions. So, one more, maybe I wasn't clear enough at the beginning about this idea that I really want to share, especially with you, is that Jacques Perkins, who is doing this amazing performance, he was doing websites for 15 years. Joanie will tell you tomorrow about how he was doing websites. I showed you my amazing skills with Flash. So what I want you to, maybe I don't need to convince you, but I really believe that you can do everything with code, and you should really take it outside of the computer and make beautiful things with your coding skills. Ah.